Alright, next one up is going to be this 2011 Ford Taurus. Hit a deer just underneath. It missed the headlight and hood and all that. Just got the bumper and the grill. Actually took the grill out already. It was just hanging in there. Got some broken tabs right there across the top. But I can bond that back together. He's just trying to get this thing to look decent. It's got 225,000 miles on it already. It was a company vehicle. He got pretty cheap from his company. He tends to buy these when they're ready to turn in for his children. Gonna have to get a bumper cover and at least the lower half of the inner fender, if it's available. May have to get the whole thing. Tire wore it completely off. So it looks like bumper cover and inner fender will take care of it. This grill bar here is pushed in. There's a little bit of a gap I can get my finger in. Over here it's nice and tight, but I think I can get that. Work back out once I get the bumper off. I can reset the grill, and if I have to, I can bond it back in if it's got a broken clip. I think other than that, that's going to take care of it. I got to get the bumper cover and the inner fender ordered so they can be on the way while I get this thing torn down. Maybe a couple other pieces behind there. I can't see anything else that really looks like it might be an issue. Reinforcement absorber there looks good. It's just hard plastic. This is missing too. I've got to get this little filler piece, just like this little plastic filler. So I think those three pieces will take care of it, and a little bit of paint on the bumper, it'll be back to normal. See you when I get some parts. Okay, I just noticed that the right side also had worn through the inner fender. Didn't notice that at first. And also there's probably a filler piece underneath here, a splash shield, which is completely missing too. So I'm gonna have to get those two parts. Looks like it'll be two fender liners, a splash shield, bumper cover, and a filler panel for that pocket on the other side. That ought to get it. There's also a lower air dam to this bumper that snaps in its channel and runs down underneath along the whole entire bottom part of the bumper. That's gonna have to be replaced. I think he told me that was missing. I just forgot about it. And then there are some clips underneath here. In this part underneath the radiator, there's some clips. I can tell something was torn out of there. So there's a piece that goes from right there out towards that, or attaches to that lower valence panel. So I'm gonna have to look for that. I don't think I saw that when I was looking for parts the other day. I'm gonna have to get that from the dealership. All right, I got the bumper here. I actually had to order a replacement, but it's not gonna be here in time, so I've got to fix this one. It had some damage right on this corner. Looked like this corner right here had gotten run over by a forklift or something during shipping, somewhere from Michigan to here. So I've got it straightened out. Heated it with a heat gun, gotten all this as straight as I can get it. But there's still a couple of low spots right in here it's got this ripple and I can't get it straight. So I'm going to sand this out with 180. Throw on some plastics adhesion promoter for my 3M just surface repair compound, and we'll put some of that on it. And let that set up and block it out. Then I'll just prime this one section, and that should take care of it. Alright, this is 180 grit. It's actually a worn down piece, so it's probably more like 240. This masking tape here is so that I don't get any scratches in this part past this body line. I just need to do the work in here. And you can see, maybe you can see that. It's low here and here. So I'm just going to wipe this section and then block it out flat, and that should be good. I'm just trying to get through the primer right now and put a little bit of a scratch in the plastic. I'm going to have to get a new piece of paper that's not really rough enough out on the edge where I have to use it. I can't get the center of it in there where I need it. Be right back. Alright, this is a fresh piece of 180. Don't have to go very far, you just got to get into the plastic. Alright, I'm going to blow that off really good and not put any kind of solvent on it since it's bare plastic. We're going to blow it off really good and then spray adhesion promoter on that. Be right back with that. Alright, I'm going to blow it off, and as soon as I do that, I'll add some of this 5907, let it sit for 10 minutes, and I'll come back with my repair compound. You don't need much of that. I'll let that sit for a few minutes. I'm going to go get the repair compound ready for it. Alright, that's flashed. This is the 3M5887. We'll squeeze a little out of the tube and then come back and apply it. I've got it taped here and all the way around the back and under here so that I can just pull it off once I get this on, so none of my repair compound gets around the edges. See if that's enough. I may have to put a little more on it once I start to wipe it. I'm just going to flatten it out. Once I get it covered, I'll come back and wipe it in really tight. Now it's really pressed it in nice and tight. Now I can build it back up. I'm going to add a little bit more. I can always block it off. So it's pretty thick. It's runny, but it's also thick. It's hard to get out of the tube. You have to kind of plan on that. You can only go so far with it before your forearm starts to tell you to stop. Try to seal up a door skin or even a hood hem flange. You'll just about not be able to do it before your arm's giving out on you. Alright, I think that's good. It'll level itself out. Try to go ahead and feather this in while I can. Alright, now I'm going to go back and pull the tape. Once this hardens up, it'll trap the tape in there. Alright, that'll have to sit up for probably 20 minutes. And come back and block it flat. See you then. Alright, the filler's set up. I've got you set up right in the reflection of the light on the wall there. So you can see how it goes dull as I sand it. I'm going to start it with the DA with the hard disc and just run it flat and try to start planing this down, and then I'll come back with a block once I get it close. This is 180. Trying to keep it flat to the surface. Knock down the high spots. You can probably see that now. Got these glossy places here where it's still low, but I'm going to keep doing that, then I'll come back with the block when I get close. I'll also spray a little guide coat on it when I do that. I'm starting to cut through right here and right in here, so I'm just going to block this area. This right here really wasn't damaged too bad, but I'll block it a little bit with it. Be right back with the block. Alright, now I'm going to spray a little guide coat. It'll take just a few seconds to dry. By the time I go get the sandpaper and come back, it'll be dry and ready to block. I'm going to have to do all this with a piece of 180 because I don't want to get any 80 grit scratches in the plastic. That'll be really hard to get out. It'll take a little longer that way, but I won't have any problems with the sand scratches. I'm going to grab a brush from my paper. It's pretty close. I'm going to get it as close as I can and then go around the edges with the DA a little bit just to speed it up. Got a little bit of a low spot right there. I'm gonna block till I get that out, or I may have to fill it if I'm already where I need to be. I may have to just put a little bit of filler right there. Let that be it. But if I can get most of it out, the primer will fill the rest of it. It's pretty good. I'll be back when it's ready. Alright, I've done all I can do with the block, and it's just probably 95% there. Doesn't need much more. I'm going to feather all these scratches out. And this little piece here, I couldn't get the block out. I'm going to sand that out with 400 on the soft face DA. I took the interface pad off because I still want a little bit of a firm cut. But I am going to be using 400 grit. Alright, I'm going to put the interface pad on to go into this because I don't want to go through the primer. Be right back with that. Alright, interface pad's on. I'm going to stay away from the edges and the body line, and I'm going to come back with Scotch-Brite and do that. Alright, that's good for now. I'm going to do the rest with the Scotch-Brite. I'm going to blow it off first so I can see what I'm doing. I hate to go through this much trouble for this old, not necessarily old, but high mileage car. But try to keep a minimum quality standard on everything I'm doing, so I didn't want to leave it. I wouldn't have left it if it was a newer or low mile car, so I'm going to go ahead and do it anyway. Now this edge, right where this overlapped, and over here need to be sanded down, probably with maybe some 180 on the edges, just because you won't be able to see those sand scratches if they show in the primer. I need to go back and clean those edges up a little bit once I get done with this, right before I prime it. And 3M recommends another coat of the 5907 on top of this, plus I need some adhesion promoter on the plastic anyway, so I'm just going to use that as my adhesion promoter. And then 3 coats of primer. I'm going to stay away from this. I don't want to prime in there because I got to go back and sand it. So I'm going to sand up to the edge. I'll actually tape it probably right along the edge and just, or right inside the edge, and stay away from it. This has got to be all red Scotch-Brite anyway, so I'm not really doing anything extra here. It'll be done anyway. I'm going to go a little further than where I really need to go just to make sure it all sticks. I'll come back and sand in here once I get ready to paint it. Alright, I'll show you what I've got so far. You can see all this that's almost like a teal color. That's the actual plastic. I've gone through it, through the primer there, but I'm gonna come out here with the primer to cover that up. So all this is just bare plastic. I'm gonna go around this edge here with 180, just to crispen that up a little bit. Around here, and it'll be ready for some adhesion promoter and primer. Be right back. Okay, just like the first time I put the adhesion promoter on, I just blew it off. I actually cranked the pressure up a little bit. I blew it off, probably 60 PSI or so. Put another coat of this on, then I can prime it. This will go over just this plastic areas and the filler. All right, that's gonna flash for about 5 to 10 minutes. I'm gonna mix the primer up now, so by the time I mix it, this will be flashed and ready to go. It's ready for primer now. I'm gonna put one coat over the whole area, and then I'm gonna step it in slightly, about an inch or so. End up with 3 coats just in that area of the work. All right, that'll get about a 10-minute flash, and I'll come back for the second and third coat in a second. Second coat, I'm not going to go quite as far out. Okay, the third coat will just be over the bodywork. Third coat, last one. Looks pretty good. It's gonna look fine. I've had somebody ask about how I clean my paint guns. I'm gonna show you that real quick, just to clean the primer gun out since I've just used it. I've got an old gallon can there that I pour all my excess paint in. I keep a mixing cup full of old thinner from washing guns out there. All the solids fall to the bottom basically. I can just pour some of the halfway clean old thinner back out to clean with into the cup that I use to mix the paint. So I just hang on to that, and I leave a lid on it just to keep it from evaporating out. First thing I do is that's the gun I use for the primer. I take the lid off, which is right here. I'll clean the lid. I take some of this, pour it in the cup, clean the paint out of the cup so it doesn't dry around the inside of it and ruin my cup. Then I clean the lid first with this thinner, and then I rinse it off, just wipe it down and throw it to the side. Then I'll pour the paint out into that can. Then I'll clean out this cup, the paint cup, then I'll go to take the gun apart and clean it. I'm going to have to leave my mask on for this, so I'll just have to talk to you in between steps. This hole actually needs to be cleaned out occasionally, and I've got an old coat hanger that I use to do that with. Well, I'll actually lay my internals to my gun here in the air cap. That's so they can dry, and then I'll put it back together later. Alright, I'm going to take some of the old thinner, fill this up with it, about a quarter of the way up, shake it around, actually going to put the lid back on to shake it. That does dirty the lid back up, but I had to get the paint off there before it dried. But this will still be wet, so I can just wipe it back down. Doesn't really matter that I'm putting old thinner in here because I'm going to take it apart and clean the pieces anyway. This is just a good way to save thinner. We'll run some of it through the gun to clean out the fluid passage. And I'll scrub the inside with a brush. Alright, now I'll pour this out. I'm going to rinse this out with the thinner bottle. Just enough to wash it down into the cup. I don't know if you can see that. Just enough to wash the paint off the walls down into the bottom, and I'll run that through the fluid passage. I'll do this twice. It won't be completely clear, but that's okay. I'm going to wipe the cup out. Alright, now I'm going to take the cup off and pour this back into my cup that I save it in. Eventually this gets full and I'll just pour it out, or most of it, and just save a little bit left in there for the next time. And rinse this off. The paint sometimes gets on the outside of it. And I'll throw a small round brush through here to scrub it. I'll rinse through it one last time. And I'll hang that on my rack, let it drip, let that dry. I'll take a little bit of, this is actually some thinner that I accidentally poured some paint into by mistake, but it's still good enough to clean with. Normally I would take a little bit of clean virgin thinner and fill this up, a couple ounces. This is fine for this. That's the bulk of the thinner, of the new thinner that I'll typically use to clean with. I'll take the filter out, the cap. You don't want to leave the cap in there permanently because it'll swell this plastic and these internal plastic seals. But it's okay for a few minutes. I'll take the fluid tip off. And you really want to hold this back. I forgot that time, but you want to hold this back so that you're not twisting on that while there's spring pressure on your your needle in there. Hold this back, spin it off, don't drop this on the ground. You don't want to damage that opening. I'll drop the whole gun in, work it down to the bottom, shake the thinner around on it. rinse it out. You can use the brush again to get in here if you got any that won't rinse out. Go both directions with it. That's got the gun finished. Pull the needle out. The needle really doesn't get that much paint on it. It's mostly right on the tip. That usually wipes right off. Under the air cap. Brush around in there to get any paint out of that may have gotten in it. In theory, no paint should get in here, but sometimes you do get a little bit. We'll scrub the outside of these horns, inside, and then give it a final rinse. I'm almost out of thinner in here, so I'm going to have to refill it. Let that dry. Then the fluid tip. Just ran out of thinner. Let me add a little thinner to that bottle. I'll be right back. Alright, I've got to add some thinner to this bottle. I actually buy this thinner in a 5-gallon bucket or pail, and I just keep this full from that. It's down underneath the bench. This is the fluid tip. And be very careful. You don't want to run this metal end of this down in there and wear it out. I'm just kind of staying back to the back where the paint is. In this gun there's a plastic insert which seals this to the gun. I'm mainly just cleaning that out. If you do this every time you use the gun, you really don't have to scrub it. You just rinse it as long as you don't let anything dry in it. Do this immediately after you get done spraying. The last thing is the screen that goes in the inside of the gun, the base of the cup. Rinse the solids off of that. And I'll let all this dry right here. You can put it right back together if you want, but if I don't have time, I'll just leave it here. I'm going to actually put it back together this time because I got a little time to do it. It's not necessary. Alright, it's reassembled. I don't typically worry about the gun body. It looks terrible, but it doesn't really affect anything. As long as you kind of keep the dust and junk from building up on it too much, you don't want anything falling off of it while you're painting. But occasionally I'll rinse it off and just wipe it down. Maybe every 6 months I'll actually clean it, but I'm not too worried about that typically. And you can keep the parts off of it, keep those out and let them dry if you want, but typically I'll put it back together if I can, just so the parts don't get damaged. That's about it. Got the primer finished. Show you that. I'm gonna throw a little bit of a guide coat over it. It's looking pretty straight. I think that'll be fine. I'm going to feather that out and then scuff the rest of the bumper with a red Scotch-Brite, and that'll be ready to paint. I'm going to paint directly on it with base coat.